Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Brendan Riley. I am Alderman of the 42nd Ward here in downtown Chicago, so welcome to the 42nd Ward. It's my distinct honor and pleasure to introduce our U.S. EPA Administrator Michael Regan as he's out going around the country getting ready to jumpstart our economy with a very aggressive infrastructure plan, which certainly centers around legacy improvements to our systems like our water system. Again, it's my pleasure to meet you, Administrator, and I wish you very well in your mission as we get our economy back on track. I'd also like to thank Carrie Steele, our MWRD Water Rec Commissioner, who's here with us today, as well as, of course, our Mayor, Lori Lightfoot. So without further ado, I introduce to you Carrie Steele.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
And thank you, Alderman Riley. As stated, my name is Carrie Steele, and I am President of the Board of Commissioners at the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago. Mayor Lightfoot and Commissioner Chang, I am just honored and excited and grateful that you all let me tag along on this tour this afternoon or this morning. It was extremely reminiscent to walk through the laboratories because this is where probably maybe about 20 years ago I started my career as a water chemist in the control laboratory. So it was awesome just to see that and for you all to highlight the importance for our city to maintain a clean water environment. Michael Regan, it is an honor to meet you as well. And as we stand here at the largest water filtration plant in the world, I would like to invite you to the largest wastewater treatment plant in the world at Stickney, which is part of the Metropolitan Water Reclamation. So welcome to Chicago. Hopefully at some point you can visit the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago, but thank you all for coming, and once again, Mayor Lightfoot, thanks for having me. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. It is a great day to be at the world's largest water filtration plant, one that was built in the 1960s with incredible forethought of what the needs were going to be for Chicago and the region. I want to thank Andrea Chang, who's stepped up to be our next water commissioner, subject to City Council confirmation. When you listen to Andrea, who is a PhD in water engineering and a whole lot of other things that I, frankly, to my feeble mind as somebody who barely got through high school biology, don't fully appreciate, what you hear is an expert. Somebody who really understands one of the most important functions of the water department was making sure that the water that we push out to 5.3 million customers here in Chicago and across the region is pure and good, and it is. So thank you, Andrea. It was a great experience to go through on this tour with you. Today we are here to discuss one of our city's most precious resources, our water and its infrastructure. And as many of you know, Chicago knows a lot about water, and we pride ourselves in having the cleanest water in the world. We are home to the world's largest and 8th largest conventional water treatment plants, which draw and purify water from Lake Michigan, our city's crown jewel. But here in Chicago, we don't just settle for being good enough, especially when it comes to our health, and even more so during this global pandemic. This pandemic has underscored the need for more equitable solutions to providing safe and accessible water, as well as the importance of an equitable and inclusive economic recovery. That's why last year we unveiled a number of initiatives to ensure our residents had access to this critical resource. One of those was the lead service line replacement program. This program addresses lead service lines, a legacy issue here in Chicago that impacts nearly 400,000, primarily single-family and two-flat homes. These lines are the result of aging infrastructure and no longer adequately serve the needs of our residents. Replacing all of these lines is a huge task. We all understand that. A huge task with an enormous price tag. Making it a key obstacle in our overarching mission to modernizing our water infrastructure. But we owe it to our residents to begin the work, and that's exactly what we did. And what better time than now that has demanded that we address systemic inequity and lack of access to resources once and for all. That's why our lead service line replacement program provides a variety of resources to residents who wish to replace their lead service lines, with 2 separate programs for low-income residents and residents who are able to hire a contractor. Our goal with this initiative, as well as everything else we've done throughout this pandemic, is to give residents what they need to care for their health and health of those that they care about. But as I mentioned earlier, this goal cannot be accomplished alone, much less without the collaboration of leaders from all levels of government. That's why, in part, I'm also grateful for President Carrie Steele for being here, because we need to forge a closer relationship between the City of Chicago and a water reclamation district, and we will do just that. That's why we're also especially excited to have federal partners like Administrator Regan and President Biden, who know just how important updated infrastructure is to the health and well-being of our residents. In addition to the lead service line replacement program, our city is also preparing for the end of its bold, proactive 10-year capital improvement program, which began in 2012 and seeks to address our aging water and sewer infrastructure. Any of you who have come through the front of this building, one of the more remarkable archetype relics is the wooden water lines that used to line so many of our streets here in Chicago. Now, obviously, we've come a long way since then, but we have more work that we want to do. And this program, which, as I said, began in 2012, includes a replacement of 880 miles of water main and 220 miles of sewer main. Since 2012, our water department has replaced 750 miles of water main and 189 miles of sewer main, meaning that while we have made some significant progress, we still have a lot of work to do, making federal and state partnership as well as community engagement at all local levels all the more important. Beyond our lead service lines and water sewer mains, our city and the Department of Water Management also remain laser focused on keeping up our massive water system, which provides, as I said, 5.3 million customers, or 42% of Illinois, with water from Lake Michigan through the city of Chicago. In order to do that, we must use this moment to double down on our replacement and modernization process. Our water and sewer infrastructure was installed between 1890 and 1930, when Chicago grew from a mere 300,000 to more than 3 million. Meaning that we are long overdue for an update. And replacing these aging water mains has proven to be an excellent solution to this issue, as it reduces wastewater. Water leaks, that's a problem that we are minimizing with the work that we're doing with this replacement program. Protects public health by keeping potential water contaminants from entering the water system, and reduces the likelihood of breaks and leaks that can damage property. Another effort we've undertaken to ensure our residents have access to clean, high-quality water during the pandemic, and Administrator, I want to highlight this in particular for you, is the Utility Billing Relief Program, which we rolled out last April of 2020. This program supports low-income residents who have fallen behind on their water bills and reinforces the fact that clean water is a basic human right. Administrator, I learned during my transition that the city of Chicago was routinely cutting people off from water when they didn't pay their bills, if you can imagine that. We don't do that anymore in the city of Chicago. But we also need to make sure that we give those who are afraid, because they do have water debt, an opportunity to get back into service and back on a payment plan that works for them, a customized plan, so that they can continue to enjoy the basic human right of water. So here's how it works. Once residents enroll in the program, their water and sewer bills are cut by 50%, creating much needed space in tight budgets. And they are given the opportunity to have their entire debt completely forgiven if they make payments for just 1 year. And for households that don't qualify for this program, they are still able to establish a payment plan with the city. Since this program launched a year ago, nearly 11,000 homeowners have been enrolled in the program, and more than $12 million in debt has been forgiven, giving thousands of families some much-needed relief in a time marked by adversity and uncertainty. Each and every one of these initiatives that we've launched to protect our residents' access to clean water have shown great success. But in order to sustain that, we need funding and support from our partners at the federal level, which is why I am thrilled to support the American Jobs Plan. The American Jobs Plan will leverage $111 billion to upgrade drinking water infrastructure and reduce lead exposure all across the country. And give cities like Chicago the resources needed not only to address deep backlog of infrastructure needs and improve residents' quality of life, but also to jumpstart our economy. Because every single one of those dollars that come to Chicago means that we're putting people to work to help our residents. And I want to again thank Administrator Regan, not only for being here today, but for his commitment to a set of values of making sure that we put people first, that we focus on equity, that we focus on justice. And I look forward to a long and productive partnership with the US EPA under your management. And I'd like to welcome you to Chicago formally and invite you to say a few words.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you, Mayor Lightfoot, and thank you for hosting us today. I am definitely looking forward to a very strong partnership with you and your administration, and to all of my colleagues that I'm sharing the stage with today. Here in Chicago, on the shores of Lake Michigan, we see a prime example of the importance of water infrastructure for the health and vitality of all of our communities. We also see an urgent need to continue to replace and upgrade that very water infrastructure to support these communities today and revitalize them for the next century. At EPA, we're committed to ensuring a healthier, more equitable future through water infrastructure investments. And we're excited about the opportunity that President Biden's American Jobs Plan presents to fulfill that mission. Chicago's Department of Water Management operates and maintains the largest conventional treatment plant in the world. The Jardine Water Purification Plant, where we find ourselves today, was put in service in 1974 with a capacity of 1.4 billion gallons of water per day. Together, the Jardine Water Purification Plant and the Sawyer Water Purification Plant, about 10 miles south, can produce up to 2.1 billion gallons of safe water per day for the city of Chicago and 120 surrounding communities. While the decades-old structures and equipment still produce safe drinking water, they are constantly undergoing preventive maintenance and modernization, which can be costly, to ensure resilient operation today and well into the future. Chicago's vast distribution system has 4,300 miles of water main and 4,500 miles of sewer main that also require replacement on a regular basis. We know that in Chicago, like many cities, both large and small across the country, the safe water that leaves the drinking water purification plant can be contaminated by lead pipes that connect to homes and the distribution system. It's estimated that Chicago has, as the mayor stated, at least 400,000 homes that are connected by lead pipes. The city is looking to accelerate lead pipe replacement, which is an important first step. But we have to do more to partner with our communities. We must identify where the lead pipes are located, remove them quickly, and ensure that all of our communities, especially our communities of color and lower income communities, are protected from lead in drinking water. And EPA has a track record in partnering with our progressive mayors like Mayor Lightfoot. EPA has demonstrated that investing in water infrastructure can improve public health, close the water equity gap, and create jobs in communities all across America. In the last 2 years, EPA's drinking water and clean water state revolving funds have provided over $20 billion to support water infrastructure, which is estimated to have created over 300,000 jobs. And our WIFIA loan program has provided over $9 billion to help finance water infrastructure projects while creating approximately 49,000 jobs and saving communities over $4 billion. President Biden's American Jobs Plan would build on these successes by proposing an unprecedented $111 billion investment to revitalize drinking water, wastewater, and stormwater systems, tackle new contaminants, and support clean water infrastructure all across this country. An investment of this scale and scope would create nearly 2 million good-paying jobs. The plan also calls for removing 100% of the lead pipes, like those lurking underground in Chicago and that plague far too many American communities, many which are Black, Latinx, Indigenous, and low income. As the mayor has rightfully pointed out, these are costly investments, and cities cannot face these challenges alone. They need help and partnership from the federal government to make these critical investments in communities, and that's why we're here today. Together, we can put Americans to work while eliminating this devastating public health threat and delivering environmental justice to communities that have for far too long borne the brunt of pollution. Investing in water is one of the best decisions we can make as a nation, for public health, for environmental protection, and for short-term job creation and stimulus, and for laying the foundation for future economic vitality in our communities. So again, Mayor, I want to thank you for your partnership, and I want to thank the City of Chicago for your hospitality. And I'll turn it back over to the Mayor.
Happy to take any questions that you have.
Yeah, thanks, Madam Mayor. Michael Hawthorne from the Tribune. You both talked about replacing lead service lines. Why is the city still installing water mains presently and not replacing the service lines at the same time?
Well, I think we're doing a couple things. Number one, as you know, we announced a pilot program where we are actually replacing lead service lines for individuals that qualify economically. We're also in the process of doing a pilot program to determine what is the right kind of construction that we should be using to do that replacement. We've also opened up the opportunity for any homeowner that wants it to get their lead service lines replaced right now. So I think with those three things, we are trying to move forward. We started that process late last year. We're continuing that. And I think importantly, we're not kicking the can down the road anymore. Obviously, a massive scale that is necessary requires a massive amount of funding. And we will continue to work with the federal government, but also with the state to make sure that we get the resources that we need to provide homeowners with the resources they will need to be able to make this happen. But step by step, I think we're making good progress.
Quick follow-up. There seems to be a disconnect between what the administrator is saying and what the administration is proposing related to replacing lead service lines and what your administration has been doing in Springfield. The bill that's going to probably be sent to the governor's desk this week would give the city of Chicago 75 years to replace these lead service lines. That seems like an awful long time.
It is an awful long time, but you think about the fact that we literally have hundreds, if not thousands, of feet of lead service lines all across the city. As you know, up until 1986, lead service lines were mandatory in the city of Chicago. So we want to, because the bill that's coming out of Springfield is one that doesn't come with any funding for the city of Chicago. So it's nice to have an aspiration, but the reality is where the rubber meets the road is where the funding is. So it gives us adequate time, and hopefully we'll get this done way sooner than that. And I'm optimistic about the commitment of the Biden administration in an infrastructure bill to provide that needed funding that cities like Chicago are going to need. But we probably have one of the most acute challenges regarding lead service lines of any city in the country. And we're trying with the resources that we have to make meaningful progress and not continue to ignore this problem that has happened for way too long. So we've got to work collaboratively with our partners across all levels of government, obviously with homeowners, but it's important for us to recognize that this is a problem of long standing and one that we've got to tackle now, which is why we started the efforts that we did last year.
Hi, it's Brett Chase from the Sun-Times. Can you, I imagine that you and the administrator are going to be talking about this.
I'm going to apologize. I'm having a hard time hearing you, sir.
I imagine you and the administrator are going to be talking about the southeast side and testing. I was wondering if there's any update in terms of how EPA and the city will work together on that.
Yes, we've had that conversation.
You can't elaborate?
Look, I think, and I don't want to speak for the administrator, he can obviously more than able to speak for himself. We all recognize the legacy of a post-industrial city and the challenges that we face in that regard, particularly in communities of color where residential areas are in the midst of those industrial zones. What I recognize is that we have to strike the right balance. We've got to make sure that we're protecting our residents, full stop. Whether it's from air pollution, whether it's from ground pollution, anything else, we've got to protect our residents. That's the primary responsibility. But we also have to do it in a way that balances the desire of many of these communities to make sure that there are jobs available in those communities for them. And you only do that by taking it step by step, by making sure that you're building authentic relationships with people on the ground in those communities, and that you're also evidencing a commitment to environmental justice. And that's what we have done, and that's what we'll continue to do. What I welcome is the partnership of US EPA that also recognizes the importance of exactly those same values. And so we're going to continue to work together. We're going to deepen the relationship, and I think that that will inure to the benefit of our residents, which is the most important thing.
Hi, Mayor. I have
Hi,
a question for Administrator Regan, if you don't mind. I'm Heather Sharon with WTTW News. The mayor stopped the consideration or the approval of the permit for the recycling facility on the southeast side after your letter. What would you say to those groups who have been asking the mayor to do that for more than a year, and in their fight to sort of stop pollution on the southeast side where the air quality is significantly worse, especially than somewhere like here?
You know, what I would say is that it requires what's happening, which is a partnership with our state, federal, and local organizations. And collectively, I think that we're excited that the mayor heard our recommendations and that we put this process in place. Just earlier this week, EPA and the mayor's office started putting concrete steps in place to look at how we as EPA can help with air quality monitoring, data analysis, and community outreach. It's going to take a whole of government. That's something that the president has indicated must happen. And so I think with a partnership focused on protecting communities, we can do that. And again, EPA is not anti-business, we're pro-people. And so we're trying to think through how we balance economic development and environmental and human health protection.
See that proposal as an instance of environmental racism or a lack of environmental justice, since there are so many other similar facilities in that part of the city?
I think that we're looking at environmental injustices all across this country. We have some systemic issues that this administration is committed to addressing, but we also recognize that the administration at the federal level can't do it alone. So our state and local partners are really critical for that.
Mayor, this one's for you. Okay. There's no assured passage of this federal infrastructure plan. Can you give us any priorities from ARP money for infrastructure and capital spending?
Well, number one, what I would say is we didn't wait for anyone when it comes to infrastructure. As you're well aware, as part of last year's budget, we passed the first multi-year capital plan in recent memory in the city. And we're hard at work on making sure that we're addressing infrastructure needs and priorities all across the city. There's a long list. There's a lot of deferred maintenance when it comes to bridges, when it comes to roads, when it comes to streetscape. So we're taking that on ourselves. Certainly, we remain optimistic, and we're going to continue our part to support President Biden's desire, and I think it's a bipartisan desire to have a federal infrastructure plan, but we haven't waited for the federal government to be able to act. We're taking matters into our own hands, if you will, and working diligently. We also need to make sure that we get funding from the state, from the plan that was passed by the legislator in 2019. We've seen very little of those dollars, and it's critically important that those dollars come to cities like Chicago so we can continue to magnify the efforts around rebuilding our aging infrastructure.
Mayor, I wanted to ask you about the plan you put out yesterday about shutting off liquor sales at 10 o'clock for stores. Can you explain the reasoning behind that when many of the suburban areas around are open until 11, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning? And isn't this going to hurt business and tax dollars?
No, I don't think so. And what I know is, and I can't speak for suburban communities, but what I can speak to is what's happening across many communities here in the city of Chicago. As you know, as part of the pandemic, we shut down packaged liquor sales at 9 p.m. And we did that in part because what we were seeing and hearing both from community members, but also from CPD, was that some of these liquor stores were not being good stewards of the communities in which they were situated. We were seeing improper gatherings that posed a public health risk. We were seeing other problems that resulted in calls for police service around these packaged liquor stores. Now, look, as I said yesterday, we're certainly willing to talk and to see in which ways in which we may be able to further accommodate those packaged stores. But we've got to make sure, again, that we're putting quality of life in our neighborhoods first and foremost, and we've got to make sure that those owners of those packaged liquor stores are doing their fair share. You may recall that back last spring when we announced that we were closing off packaged liquor sales at 9 o'clock, we had a number of packaged liquor store owners join us to support that effort. And I think that that has worked well over the course of the last year. But as I said, we will work with them to see where we can reach an accommodation. But they've got to step up and they've got to be better actors in these communities. Nobody should have to suffer because of liquor sales that stretch into the early morning hours that then become a real magnet for problems in neighborhoods.
If I can also just put that question to Alderman Riley, if we could, this is not just liquor stores, but this would also impact grocery stores and any other place that might sell it. Do you have concerns about shutting off these hours? And if you can weigh in on this.
Obviously, that's going to be a conversation with the entire city council. There are a number of us who want to make sure we strike the proper balance. And I think the hours will be discussed, but the mayor's right. These stores have been a quality of life concern, a public safety concern. My preference would be to use our administrative tools to crack down on bad actors and hopefully, perhaps, negotiate on the closure hour. But that'll be a longer conversation between the administration and the city council, and hopefully we'll strike the right balance.
Hi, Mayor. Tara Molino with CBS Chicago. So you talked a little bit about the new billing program that's been in place,
Yes.
but for years now through our series Getting Hosed, we've uncovered bad, wrong billing practices by the city. And at this point, the water department will no longer address our questions about specific accounts. So what's being done to not only address the billing issue, but transparency regarding those issues?
I'm not aware that the water department won't address your specific questions. I think that they've been extraordinarily cooperative and transparent in the inquiries that you've made. But what I know is this: we had a significant problem where water debt was accumulating to the point where people were feeling absolutely devastated by it. And as I said, prior to taking office, the city was actually shutting people off from water, which we stopped. I stopped during the transition, even before I was sworn in. What we want to do is make sure that these basic human rights, water being key, that people have access to it, and that we're doing everything that we can to make sure that we are working with our customers to give them the opportunity to continue the flow. In addition to the people who have this backlog of debt, we also went out and worked very diligently to find those people who had previously been cut off to bring them back to service. We've got to keep, and I hope you'll spend some of your time publicizing the availability of this utility relief package, because there's more people out there that we need to reach, and we could use the media's help in getting the word out there. If you have a customized water payment plan that meets your realistic economic needs, and you fulfill your obligations for 1 year, all that old debt all of that old debt goes away. So we've got to get that word out and work to bring more people into this program. But I'm committed to doing that, which is why we put this program in place in the first place.
But in cases like the latest we exposed, where a woman where her water was shut off, that was confirmed by 2 city plumbers, and she had a $57,000 bill for a 6 flat. I mean, it's difficult to get information about those cases, and that's not a case where if she paid it off for a year, she can't pay off a $57,000 water bill.
So I obviously am not familiar with that particular case. I will say that I don't stay up long enough to watch the evening news. But obviously, if there's an issue, we'll respond to it. But as I said, we've worked diligently to make sure that we are reaching everyone that we can. You're always going to be able to find 1 or 2 people who haven't been able to take advantage of the program. What I hope you're doing is, as you're finding those folks, is encouraging them to take advantage of the program so that they can address whatever the outstanding issues are with them. Hey,
Mayor,
Marianne.
thank you. I just wanted to clarify, when it comes to General Iron on the southeast side, that's not a done deal, right? It's just a pause?
Well, what I hear you asking, and correct me if I'm wrong, is whether or not. Well, let me just say what we've done. We've obviously done an extensive amount of engagement with the applicant to look at a number of different studies about what the impacts are going to be. We've asked for additional information. We've done numerous rounds of public comment. And in the midst of the final conclusions of that application, we were engaged with the EPA, who encouraged us, and we embrace the opportunity to conduct more environmental studies. And as the administrator indicated, our teams have already started that conversation around what that would look like, and they're going to be providing some support to us as we work through that. So that's where we are. We're still doing the work to evaluate the impact of the use of RMGs that RMG is proposing, particularly given the fact that there are other recycling companies on that same site. What is that going to mean for that particular area on the southeast side? So that work continues.
And then finally, as Springfield wraps up, nervous, worried?
Always nervous. This is the worst week of the year for me, because obviously this year in particular, there's a lot of things on the plate of the legislature. They're doing remaps, they're doing budget. I hear those conversations on budget are still ongoing and not concluded. So there's a number of things that are clearly our priority for us as a city, not the least of which is where we land on elected school boards. So yeah, these last few days are always ones that are a little bit of a nail biter every year, and I think that's especially true this year. Thanks, everyone.